Hi, everyone. How are you? Continued Easter blessings to you and those you love. I hope the season of Easter has been wonderful. I mean, how more wonderful could it be by having um, a solar eclipse yesterday? We didn't get to see so much of it here in New Jersey, but in other places of the country, I hear it was just unbelievably phenomenal. So it's nice to know that God is there in nature as well. So Easter has been eventful to a certain, both naturally and hopefully spiritually for all of you. I met with the children yesterday, and yesterday's lesson, of course, we're still dealing with post-resurrection gospels and stories, and uh, we spent a lot of time yesterday on the Eucharist. It came up in the lesson, and that certainly is the same for every lesson, um, for every age group, and every lesson really, because the Eucharist is part of everything we do. But to really concentrate on it. And we did that yesterday, and it just happened to come by chance. And when you get those moments and you say, I have to grab it because it's right there in front of me. And so we talked about it. So we talked about the road to Emmaus and discussing those things. Like, what does it mean, the breaking of the bread? Where else do we break the bread? And what does that mean? Who is that bread? Is it bread any longer? No. So it's again, it was a repetition of something I've already learned, but to have the question on the Eucharist was really, really, really important. Uh, some of you are getting ready with your children, grandchildren, to prepare for the sacraments. May is the big, or even post Easter, depending on the parish, first Eucharist, first reconciliation, and maybe even perhaps confirmation. So you may be all caught up in that, and that's good too, because as you can tell, the curriculum now is going to start. I don't want to say wind down, but it's going to be continued to be. We finish May 5th for that gospel, and we're still into post-resurrection, Acts of the Apostle kinds of things. Very interesting. Some of my favorite readings, some of my favorite scripture passages. So, but on the other hand, there's other things going on, like sacramental prep, all those kinds of things. So, take it for how it goes, and it's exciting. It's a very exciting time for everyone involved. Uh, and one of the things I wanted to share about yesterday with the children is we ran into a dilemma, and this is the dilemma that all of us run into sooner or later, and it's the real pain for directors of religious education or those in church who are specialized in the field of religious education, faith formation, catechesis. And that's the whole argument, or I wouldn't even say argument, I would call it an issue. Is it a problem? Perhaps, but I will call it an issue because I think it can be kind of worked out to the best you can. So we have our lesson, we're planned for our lesson yesterday. I get a text from Justin, my grandson, maybe around Thursday. Grandma, just to let you know, to give you a heads up that on Monday, the day we always meet, I have my first lacrosse practice, and that's at 5 o'clock. Now, the time we always meet, they come off the school bus at 4:10, and we're ready to go, ready to roll at 4:30. And we last like 5:45, that kind of thing, usually. So I said, oh, and then the parents get involved, like, we just want to tell you, Mom, this is what's going on. Well, what are the children who go to the regular parish program doing about this? Those kids who are playing lacrosse. Don't know. I am flexible. I consider myself to be flexible. I've had 5 children. I know what that means. But when it comes to these kinds of things, it's very, very important. I don't want to deprive them of their sports. I don't want none of that. But they also have to know where we, the adults, stand in terms of what is the priority here. So they're old enough, they're in 6th grade. Let's have a discussion. What do you want to do? What do you think we should do? At this point, after doing this for 3 years, teaching them, they know where I stand. There's no question. And they don't want to upset me. I feel it. They just want to kind of do the right thing. What are we going to do? Well, Grandma, it is the first practice, and I have to kind of get to know the lay of the land. I said, okay, fine, but what are we going to do about it? So we worked it out. They worked it out. The minute they got off the bus, had a snack in 2 seconds beforehand, all the equipment was ready to go, lacrosse equipment, and I had assigned them extra work before to prepare. so that when we got through the gospel, they had already read it, which they usually do anyway, but I had them read the lesson for the day so that they were familiar with it so we could kind of breeze through it and to understand and keep that catechetical mindset even after the lesson, after the practice, because I always stay for dinner on Monday as well, usually. And it worked. I mean, they knew it. It was their responsibility. It's their sport. It's their lesson, not mine. And but they got it. They got the message. And I don't want them to feel, oh my God, we have to choose because you know where they're going to go. And I think this is really a problem in the church that it's very existent. We can't ignore it. How do you handle it? Um, I think discussions, figure it out. This is yours. I'm not going to tell you what to do. You figure that out. I will help you come to that conclusion, but you have to figure it out. And sometimes I think, and I know it because I was, having worked in a parish staff, even though, diocesan staff, this was always the pain in the neck thing. We're in competition. And I was always after the parents about it, but it changed my heart somewhat. And let's reverse it. You tell me what you think is the best thing to do. Let's have a conversation about it. Let's talk about it. You have to trust they'll come up with the right thing to do. And the kids know it. They know what they're getting. They know um, where they're at. Um, they just, they get it and they know that it's important and they know the conflict. But to let them figure it out was a great thing. Ironically, the coach, his son came late because he had religion earlier. So I just thought that was funny. So they know it. They have to understand that. And as I said, I have no problem working around things, but it is a dilemma and it's a big dilemma. But I think instead of punishing people, I mean, I know I was the most judgmental person, but I've learned over the years to not be so judgmental and listen to them. You want to enjoy it, you want to let them have their sports, but you know, as I said to them, I'll say in my little snarky way once in a while, you're probably not going to get to the Olympics with all this. You're probably not even going to play college lacrosse, but you'll always have God, and how are you going to nurture that relationship? So we did a couple of extra things, like praying to God, before the games and before the practices. And they carried on with the prayer yesterday. So that was good. That was our day yesterday, which is fine. And I'm just so thrilled that they were able to come to the conclusion. When we got home, I did pick them up from practice. Did pick Justin up from practice. We had did meal together. We always have dinner, and they couldn't stop talking about the gospel, about Jesus having been resurrected from the dead, and the fact that he can still eat. I mean, this was very important to them. How does that happen? Oh my goodness, Grandma, how does Jesus eat and he's resurrected? Like, why is he even hungry? I mean, and how does he do that? And I'm like, hey, Jesus is Jesus. Jesus can do whatever Jesus wants. So, but what is the lesson in that? And for them to be listening to it and to owning it and saying, yeah, Jesus is doing all these things, and and he's died, but these are questions adults ask. Why is the resurrected Jesus eating? Where does the food go? Of course, they get very, technical about the whole thing. But my point of this whole thing was, even though we had our formal lesson before, we were able to continue with the lesson at dinner time. So sometimes you got to work that out, as long as they're learning and as long as they're happy learning. It made it work. And so nobody was upset. Nobody was, worse for anything. Uh, and that's how it worked yesterday. So have a good week. We're coming down to the end here. I think we have a few more weeks, but enjoy the spring, enjoy this new life, enjoy the Easter season, and we'll see you next week. If you have any questions, and I would like you to get in touch with me. I am curious to know if any of you used any of those meditations that I had put in. One was a meditation on Palm Sunday, uh, you know, and the meditation on how God sees you. Let me know if you use that with the children, and let me know what the reaction was. Let me know how that went. It's important so we can share that with others if it worked for you. All righty, take care. God bless. See you next week. Bye bye.